Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. We hope your, what is it, Wednesday? I think it's Wednesday. Wednesday is off to a good start wherever this webinar finds you. As we had said, we will be recording this. It will be recorded. It is being recorded. And we will be sending this out to you. It'll be posted in the Facebook group, but it will also be sent to your email. So all of this information is there. We will also be answering questions live at the end. And many of you who have opted to watch later have sent in some questions, so we'll answer those as well. Know that this is not your last chance to ask questions, so no need to fret if you think of things after the fact, because we are here to answer everything you need, so you guys are ready and excited for our trip in 17 days. I am Maureen Basie. I'm one of the co-founders of Celiac Cruise. Very much looking forward to this trip. Many places that Celiac Cruise has never been before. So we're really excited to, one, get a chance to meet you all, to be able to see all these magical places safely. Connie Saunders is here. She's a little under the weather, so she is off camera, but she's here and will be here to answer some travel specific questions as well through us at the end. And a very special hello to Mr. Matt Bisdell from all the way over the UK. Say hi for a second, Matt.
Hey guys, yeah, if you don't know me, I am Matt. I am Gluten-free Street Gang online, and I am so excited for the sailing. I can't believe it's only 17 days away. Like I didn't think it was already June, but here we are.
Yes, you'll have the pleasure of being able to see Matt, and he lives in London. So those of you who choose to do the tour that we will talk about today before the trip, but then Matt will also be sailing with us. So you'll have a chance to see him, get to know him, hear all of his magical wisdom as well. So, all right, we'll get started. Let's see. All right, so just a general outline of kind of what we're going to talk about today, just to keep me on track and make sure we get to all the details. There's just a general outline, brief introduction. I'm going to have Matt talk about the amazing pre-cruise in London, general check-in process of what that looks like, what day one on board will look like, a general overview of our dining for the week, what drinks are available and safe for us, excursions, some specific things about excursions, your ship, the beautiful Independence of the Seas, some clothing questions, what we're going to all be wearing or not. Well, that sounded weird, but you know what I'm saying. You don't have to opt into this. Leave it to me on a Wednesday in the afternoon. Okay. Well, I hope you're all awake now. All right. Gluten-free safety, how we ensure that this is as safe as described, and all the steps that we collectively go to together with the Celiac Disease Foundation to make sure that is done. Onboard events, and then we'll have questions and answers at the end. So yes, and feel free, put your questions in the Q&A there. You don't have to wait till the end, but just make sure they go in the Q&A. We will be answering them at the end. All right, take it away, Matt.
Knowing me, I'll have my own like slip of tongue in this whole shot. But yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about a few things about this cruise. In general, this is a great time to be in Europe as we go further north. Like the sun just doesn't really set till 10:30. It is just absolutely glorious. So you picked a great cruise and great itinerary for this. And as Maureen said, I'll be on board. And if you know one thing about me, it is that gluten-free travel is my passion. And if you see me, one, you see me on board, please come up and say hi. I promise that after my first sip of coffee, I am perfectly pleasant and decently friendly. So would love to get to know all of you and hear about how your gluten-free travels and adventures are going. So I want to have a couple updates on various cruise bits and bobs. The first is the pre-cruise tour, which you may have seen went out somewhat recently. It is going to be a day in London with yours truly, covering a few big attractions and restaurants. There is one big change, and that is due to overwhelming demand. We are going to be changing the tour date from Thursday the 19th to Friday the 20th. And I know it's last minute, and I really, really, really appreciate the flexibility as we're trying to accommodate as many of you as possible. And it's going to be a great day with the same itinerary, and I'm looking forward to it. If I could get the next slide. I'll post this in the Facebook group, but I have some information on what the tour is going to entail here. The big attractions that we're going to hit are Westminster Abbey and a London Eye pod. Westminster Abbey, when I first came to London as a kid, I remember just being entranced by it. Like, and also in grade school, some of the middle schoolers went on a class trip to London, and when they all came back, they kind of gave a whole like talk about what it was like, and across the board, every single one of them said they liked that the best of any bit of the tour. So I think it's a really cool part of London to see. And the other is a London iPod, which I personally love. It's a great view of London. We're going to have a pod for just us. So it will be a nice experience. And as far as like the main attraction is food. So we're going to hit three places that are really some of my favorites. The first is one of my favorite bakeries in Europe is called Manadoo, and I'm going to be having a welcome croissant for everyone on arrival. For lunch, we're going to hit up afternoon tea, which there are plenty in London, but the probably my favorite is I judge the quality based on the scones, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory themed afternoon tea is where we are going to be going, which is not far from Westminster Abbey and that part of London. And for the evening, we will be hitting up an Italian restaurant for some pasta. And these are all 100% gluten-free or certified by Celiac UK. So that's an added peace of mind there. Um, Aside from the tour, just a little other thing to note is in the near future, you're going to be provided with a guide from yours truly on all of our ports of call from Oslo, Copenhagen, Rotterdam, and Hamburg to talk about a little bit of pro tips for eating out in these places and also a listing and map of restaurants that either myself or close friends of mine who have celiac disease have personally been to and can vouch for an added sense of security. I know it's kind of frustrating that we're not allowed to bring food off of the ship, so I tried finding enough places with enough variety of cuisine that's so that we can all not go hungry once we're on shore. And there are some really good options in each city, so I don't have a date that's going to be sent, but you should be getting it in the near future. Maureen, is there anything that I'm not covering?
No, I mean that I think that that was a great overview of kind of what is included as well, letting people know that all of this is included, what they're seeing in front of you and for the tour. We will resend the registration and this specific play-by-play itinerary. It looks like we'll probably resend that to you tomorrow. In addition to some things we'll cover a little bit later in the presentation today. So look for that tomorrow. So you'll have another chance, and it's booking fast. So if you do want to do it, I would advise you to jump on as you're able. So, all right. Well, Matt, thank you so much. I mean, again, the world of knowledge that this gentleman brings to us, we are so appreciative of you and all you do for this community and all of the insight to these locations that we'll be visiting. So we'll get into the cruise check-in process a little bit because many of you have asked, a little bit of nerves of what if we haven't checked in? What do we do? How do we do that? So I'll just talk through that a little bit. So essentially, there's two places you can go to check in. We do find that the Royal Caribbean app, is very, very handy. I encourage you to download that if you have not already. go ahead, put in all of your, I think it requires your reservation number and your birth date. And that way you are able to just kind of pulls up all of your cruise information. So you'll see any excursions you've purchased, any, drink packages, things like that, if you've done that. So it's in association with what you would have done online. Now check-in is open. It's been open for some time, but there's nothing to panic about as it relates to that, because what we'll talk about in a little bit is the boarding times that I think there are some nerves about. Royal Caribbean is not as strict as they were at one point as it relates to your boarding time. So the most important thing for you is what time lunch is, which we know, you all will be there. And there's a window of time. So again, whatever works with your schedule getting to the port. Obviously, we want to make sure people are on board probably around by 1:15-ish, because lunch will conclude around 1:30. They'll stop starting serving lunch at 1:30. We do have alternatives. So if for some reason your travels don't accommodate that, you will not go hungry. But the main lunch will be taking place from 11:30 to 1:30. So we encourage you to try and get on board up to that point if you're able. And so what's going to happen when you insert all of this information in the app, they're going to have you take a picture like it's, like a selfie, so they can identify you, upload your passport information or whatever your credentials are, and it will generate a set sail pass, essentially what it is. And again, there are so many people there to help you at the port if for some reason this does not make sense as you're navigating it, but it is pretty self-explanatory as you go through the app. And essentially you'll get to the port, they're asked to see your passport, they'll ask to see this generated set sail pass, and then you'll essentially be on board. Just so you all know, because people have asked, when do we get our actual hard room cabin keys, which is what will be your pass for the rest of the week? Those will be available at your cabin. So don't think that someone will be giving that to you. You should have received it. The paper that you will have in the app or that you choose to print is kind of a temporary document until you get to your cabins that afternoon, and your keys will be right there by your door. So that's just something to keep in mind. But I mean, a key thing we want, do not worry or stress about, what time your boarding time says, or this or that. Once you get on board, it's all okay from there. So yes, we'll get into the specifics of the lunch too in a minute. So this gives you an idea again of what day one is going to look like, inclusive of some cake. So we always, make sure that people kind of know what the first few hours look like, but we will be giving you a play-by-play for the whole week in our final newsletter that will be coming out early next week. But there's the ship location, just in case you see that. From what we understand, all of the major cruise lines leave from the 101 berth. So, but obviously you're looking for Royal Caribbean. Any mode of transportation can probably let you know, but this is the primary cruise terminal that all of the larger ships leave from. It's nothing like, you think about Miami or something like that, where there's, 20 different ships leaving in one day. It's a bit, more controlled than that. So essentially Royal Caribbean is the key you're looking for. Arrive at the port close to your boarding time or anytime after 11. And as I said earlier, that flexibility in terms of coming on board kind of starts in the hours of the 11 o'clock range. I wouldn't advise you to get there at 10, ready to think you're going to board. Sometimes you can get on at 10:30, but we feel safe saying 11-ish on generally seems to work for people. The luggage tags. So some of you have asked about that as well. You will not be receiving luggage tags in the mail or anything like that. Perhaps is how cruising used to be. So when you go and check in, and we're going to have a very, very detailed illustration of where you find your luggage tags in an email that we will be sending. But that's where royalcaribbean.com, once you go in there and you do your check-in process, there will be a little button that says download luggage tags, and that's where you'll find them. But again, back to my point earlier, do not worry. If for some reason you can't find this, you forget them, you forget to print them, all you need to do at the port is tell the porters who will be there to collect your luggage what your cabin number is, and they write it on there. So, all of those things that I generally forget the last day, no need to fret about as it relates to that. So, as I said, the main dining room lunch hours. This will be on deck 5. Again, this information will be handed to you in a printout version in your emails next week. 11:30 to 1:30 are our hours of the main dining room lunch. So that's serving from that point, so you can come within those hours. It doesn't mean it starts at 11:30 and ends at 1:30. As long as you arrive within that time frame, we'll be able to seat you. Cabins usually open around 1:30. So again, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 1:45. It just generally shows how fast people got off that morning or did not get off. So hopefully we're able to, ensure that people get in there at 1:30-ish. Your keys will be at the door, at your doors there. Following that, we are going to have what's called our welcome aboard reception, or I guess it's happening during at this time. That is going to be in our conference room, which is on deck 2. Those of you who have sailed with us before know what this looks like. This again is a large window of time to arrive. You don't need to arrive at 1. Come when it suits your schedule. When you arrive there, you will be receiving lanyards, wristbands, your swag bags, and other fun items that we'll be distributing to you. And that is how you are going to be identified as part of our group moving forward. So up to that point, we will have you have to show some type of documentation to get into our dining room, because again, we only want people who are supposed to be there. But instructions will be coming in your email about showing a lunch ticket that you need to get into lunch, showing that. But following this reception, you will have a wristband, you will have a lanyard that will be able to identify you as part of our group and let us know if you should be in there or not. So this is kind of a general overview. I know that's a lot of information. Keep in mind, this will all be spelled out to you in further communication. We always have a bit of a sail away party to get the trip started. It looks like we're sailing away 5:30, which is going to be during the time of dinner. So we're just calling it a sun deck party. So we're going to have everybody meet up on the sun deck around 4 o'clock that day. Again, no pressure. It's your vacation, but if it suits, we'd love to see you. So,
And Maureen, I have 2 questions for you that are somewhat relevant to everything that you're talking about here.
okay.
The first is, when do we get boarding passes for the ship, and how does that work?
Okay, so that the boarding pass will arrive, as I stated, in the app when you check in. So that's where you're going to find your sets. They call it set sail pass, boarding pass, but that's where you will find that. So once you do the check-in, and it will have you do I think it will send you a notification 24 to 48 hours before to finalize some health information, making sure you're feeling up for travel, things like that. And once you complete that, you will be able to generate the set sail pass. It will be in the app, or you will be able to print it from royalcaribbean.com.
Awesome. And the second question, might be jumping the gun a little bit with events, but I imagine the Sun Deck party is going to be private for Celiac cruisers. Are there any other private events happening on the sailing? And if so, how would we know where to find the information on that?
Great question. So the sail away party is not completely privatized. We can't tell people that they can and cannot come, because we're kind of hovered around this open public space. But we will have again, we'll be able to identify one another with our lanyards or wristbands, because you'll have them at that point. We have many events that will be following throughout the course of the week. You will have a day-by-day itinerary that we will be mailing to you, so you'll be able to see that. We encourage you to print those out prior to coming, but also what we will have when you check in at our welcome aboard reception is, QR codes that you're able to scan, and that will generate a photo of it so you can save it on your phone so you do not miss any events. All right. So, general overview of dining on board. So, you see my big sample button there. Just letting you know this is not the exact cruise specifics. As you can see, yes, it was Independence of the Seas that we're lucky enough to be sailing on for the third time this cruise, but that was a previous one. But this is an example of what you will receive next week. So, again, when I say you'll have all of this information in your hands, I genuinely mean it. You'll have the specific hours of operation for breakfast, for lunch, our Windjammer hours, because we will be having a gluten-free line upstairs in the Windjammer. So you'll have all of this information at your fingertips, inclusive of locations, what deck is what and where to go. Because come day 2 or 3, you'll know where you're going. But in the beginning, it's nice to have that information. So just a general overview of our general dining so I can, time specifics here. The main dining room on deck 5 is our location. That is the dedicated gluten-free Celiac Cruise dining room. We'll be open from 7:30 to 9 each morning for breakfast. Lunch hours will be 11:30 to 1. And then dinner, we ask arrival between 5 and 5:15 so everyone can get seated. These are the hours, again, that, we try and make it so people have plenty of opportunity should you want to come back for lunch on a port day. So if you want to go out in town and then come back and make sure you're able to eat. So there's some time in between these. The Windjammer is on, oh gosh, look at me, deck 14, 16. Anybody feel free to help me there. We've been on many, many ships and they're either 14 or 15. So, and maybe it'll be 16, but that information again. But the Windjammer, which is kind of the quick service venue on all of Royal Caribbean ships, we will have a gluten-free line. That food will again be prepared in our deck 5 galley, the kitchen. So it is leaving the galley from where all of our food is prepared. That will be for breakfast and lunch. Those hours, again, will specifically be provided to you because it's a bit of a range, but we want to be able to give people some flexibility as it relates to that. So keeping in mind, the Windjammer is a shared venue. Again, the food is coming from our dedicated kitchen, but it is coming up in venues. There will be people eating gluten in that environment. We will be manning the line to ensure everyone arrives with a clean plate. So there's no cross contact taking place from plates or tongs. So all of that will be well manned. But again, if that is something that you'd prefer just to be in the main dining room and not have to have gluten in the environment, we encourage you to stick with the main dining room. But again, that food is prepared in the deck 5 galley. There will just be other patrons in that venue who will be eating gluten-containing items. So other gluten-free offerings around the ship, as always, Sorrento's Pizza, we will have a dedicated oven there for us with a dedicated cutting board, toppings, all of these things that we'll go into to make sure all of these boxes are checked, but this is our standard. Just so people, keeping in mind, there is no pizza tossing that takes place in these venues. Either the gluten-containing pizza and the gluten-free pizza are both frozen, arriving. So there's no, tossing of flour and things like that may traditionally make people uncomfortable in pizza venues. So just keeping in mind, there is no pizza flying flour in these environments. Cafe Promenade is also on deck 5. It's the main kind of strip in the middle of the ship. We will again have some sandwiches and prepared items that will be coming from our deck 5 dedicated galley. So they will be prepared there, wrapped, put in, plastic containers and stored in a separate trolley that will be just for us. So there will be options there as well as cookies and things like that. So there's another great option for a quick grab if you're perhaps heading out and want to get something, but not necessarily wanting to sit down and have a sit-down menued meal. And then as always, we will have gluten-free ice cream cones on board. They will be changing gloves in between. So as you can see there on the left, some of our friends like to take full advantage of that. So just know that the gluten-free ice cream cones are there. There will be a sign that says gluten-free available. We ask that you communicate, I need a gluten-free cone. They will change their gloves and give you a gluten-free ice cream cone. And then finally, late night snacks, just in case you were wondering if there's more food. Here we go again. Late night snacks between 10 to 11. This is exclusive only for Celiac Cruise guests. You will see many of us working that door in the first two to three evenings are resemble somewhat of a nightclub, and that we are trying to bounce people out of there because everyone wants to come in here because it is the only midnight buffet available anymore on any of these ships. So, and let me tell you, when we use the word snacks, that's not really consistent with what happens. It is a full-on fourth meal or fifth of the day, and they have become pretty legendary. A lot of our pictures all over social media do come from our late night snacks. We will be sharing the themes with you each day so you kind of can anticipate what to save room for or not. But, you know, this is when the churros make their appearance. This is when the donuts make their appearance. We really do enjoy and have a lot of fun with the theming of these so we can have those things that we don't get that much anymore. So 10 to 11, time to eat again. So our favorite, Holidaily, of course, because currently Royal Caribbean and the majority of the cruise ships only carry gluten-reduced beer. We made it our mission long ago to find a way to make sure we could have a truly gluten-free beer available for your vacation, if that is your vacation beverage. So that has come all the way over from Golden, Colorado, and will be available for us on board. We'll have some other events with Holidaily there with some tastings and things like that. So again, you can have the opportunity to fully indulge in your vacation. Prior to, because we will be on board the week prior to our sailing, we will be reviewing every mixer, every ingredient, every cherry, everything you can think of that would be going in your beverages, and we'll be ensuring that everything is safe. At this point, prior to, you know, all previous sailings this year, the only two items that we have found are strictly off limits on these ships have been the twisted tea that has malt in it, and then also the beer, the regular beer, not our beer. So, and we've checked the straws. If you want to find me on board, I can tell you the fascinating stories about this straw from Strawfish all the way in Miami. But they are 100% safe too. There is no top 8 allergen safe, in fact. So plenty to enjoy.
If I could chime in on the beer ever so quickly, just as a little pro tip, in Europe, unfortunately, a lot of gluten-free beer is distilled from gluten-containing grains, and is labeled gluten-free. It's legally allowed to be labeled that. If that is a concern to you, verify on any beer that you see before you buy it, on the ingredients list. If there is like wheat, barley, or rye containing, it will be labeled and bolded because of allergen laws here. But part of why this beer is such a success is because it actually is made from gluten-free grains, and that's not always so common in Europe. So just something to be careful of.
Good tip. Good tip. Okay, excursions. So many of you have booked excursions. I know some of you have also communicated that a lot of things were sold out. We have found in our many, this will be cruise number 22, in fact, Royal Caribbean holds back a lot of excursions. So all of a sudden, things become available as we get closer in. So we encourage you to check back often online. Additionally, when you get on board, there's an excursion area or desk, an entire little section. A lot of times you can go there and inquire what is available because there is a lot that all of a sudden is not sold out. So just keep that in mind. As you can see, there are, it seems, plenty for all different activity levels. So you don't have to be doing the hardcore kayaking if, you know, sitting and doing a more of a gentle walking tour is more your speed. So, and as Matt had said earlier, we will be providing, upon your excursions, these amazing little towns we will be providing in cities, gluten-free options in locally. So look for that. That will come. I've already seen it. It's beautiful, as always, and incredibly detailed and thorough. Matt does such an amazing job with that. So that will be an amazing thing to have on hand for each of these ports of call. So just giving you a little idea, if you haven't looked, all the things to do on this incredible ship. There is so much. It's really hard to get it all done in 8. Luckily, we have 8 nights, not just the traditional 7. So maybe you can check an extra box on day 8. There's rock climbing. There's a flow rider. That is actually top left, my son Patrick, before he graduated to actually surfing now on it. So you can do boogie boarding or you can surf. That's available. It's a super fun activity. And, I encourage you, even if you have a little interest, to try. It doesn't hurt too bad when you fall, stated from experience. There's ice skating on board in the middle of the ocean. Yes, there is ice skating. Amazing gluten-free food, says without. Of course, indoor and outdoor pools. There's shopping, spas, the casino, many, many lounges and bars on board. There's incredible shows, there's a kids club, and just more. As you can see, there's rock climbing up there, bottom left. They have this ship particularly has a fantastic kids kind of splash area adjacent to a pool. So there's just a lot for pretty much anybody in any age to do. And you're also welcome to just sit and relax too. But there is plenty to see and do, and we'll have more for you with our events too. Okay, so this was the attire thing that I slipped. So normally we know this well in advance. I can sit here and tell you day 1 is this, day 2 is this. What's really cool about our particular sailing is it's not, their traditional Eastern, Western Caribbean that they flip week to week. So our sailing is actually a unique one. So as a result, we don't have the play-by-play of each night quite yet. We hope to be able to get that in the next day or two, because some of our food and beverage team is already on board, arrived yesterday. So we are told we will get that information. So we can hopefully send that to you in that final newsletter next week. But we know this so far. We've been told you're going to have 2 dress your best nights, 1 Latin night. I don't know. We'll try. I'll try and figure out what I'm going to dress for that. A 70s night. There's a red night. So I want to say, just because they also have a white attire evening, the red night, from my understanding, is for this particular nightclub. If that's your thing, I guess you're supposed to wear red. I have not frequented that venue, but let me know how it is, because apparently they turn one entire venue into kind of a nightclub and everyone wears red and it's supposed to be a great time. And then there was something about bring back the beach. So if any of you have any great ideas of what one should pack, I think it has to do with like your 90s whatever your favorite decade is of music. So I don't know. Looking for ideas. 80s would definitely be mine. So maybe I'll throw in my 80s attire from a previous holiday beer tasting. But yes, so that is what we know so far. But again, we'll try and get you more detailed information so you know what you're wearing or not. You don't have to dress this way. Again, it's your vacation. You choose to do what you want. Many people have asked, dining room, it can be very casual. I think they essentially ask that, you're not in bathing suit cover-ups. You're dressed somewhat for dinner, but nothing fancy by any stretch of the imagination. Jeans, shorts, things like that are perfectly fine. It's your vacation. We want you to do with it what you will. So gluten-free safety. So again, I mentioned this, as you know, we take this incredibly serious. Many of us will be sailing the cruise before to go through all of these things alongside with the Celiac Disease Foundation. We already have our menus. Those have been reviewed just for the general, what is in them. But once we get on board, we dig a lot deeper. So there will be crew that is completely trained. So all of your food and beverage team will be trained on celiac and what that means, and ensuring they have a full understanding of what this is, inclusive of the kids clubs, your dishwashers, things like that. So everyone gets a good understanding of why we are here and why this is so important. It's not a choice either. All labels, every single thing that comes onto that ship. So we were deep down in the frozen belly of the ship underwater, going through every single label. It's checked, reviewed. It's quite a lengthy process, but just to ensure everything came in as it was ordered, and that is all checked. The menus, the ingredients. Okay, so the menu is each play-by-play of what item, what are you putting in it, things like that. So when I say every detail is reviewed, we take this very serious. We do inspection venues prior to. I talked about the mixers, the bars, things like that. That is all checked. Play-Doh is removed for this sailing, so there will not be Play-Doh in our kids clubs. Just so parents can also, unplug and not worry about that. We'll check the paints, all of that, just to ensure there is no gluten-containing ingredients in any of these items. So yes. So onboard events. So we talked about this a little bit. Again, you'll be getting all of this information and a direct link to be able to sign up for some of these events. But I'll go through this. We will have adult meetups in the evening. So a few nights, we always like to give people the chance to meet up. Again, if they are sat in bars or lounges, there is no requirements for drinking. We want everybody to come. That just sometimes that's the venue that we have available to meet. So we encourage as many of you to come if you're up for that. That will be in your daily schedule. We will have kids and teens events. Matt may even be involved in some of this. So give a chance for the kids and the teens to get to know each other, but also just to connect with something that maybe they've never been able to meet someone before with celiac but maybe without even talking about it, but just having that opportunity for these kids to meet, interact has been really, really special for so many of them, inclusive of mine. So we will have a keynote presentation. I'll share a little bit about that in the next slide on day 2. As many of you know who have cruised with us before, it's very important to Celiac Cruise to give back. So we have started, it's called Cruising for a Cause, in that we are feeding many, many families who cannot afford the gluten-free diet. So we will have 4 opportunities for you to participate and help feed, I think it's up to 800 families we've fed to date. So we'll have opportunities for you to participate should you be up for it, and have a little fun as you do so. So for those events, we'll be having a cocktail party and a silent disco, which if you've never done silent disco before, let me tell you, it is an entertaining, even if you're not even a dancer, it is fantastic to sit and watch people in a silent environment, but with their headsets on, or just come and interact. No pressure to do any of the above, but that's going to be on day 2 in the evening. We have a Taste of Royal happening, which is essentially the Royal Caribbean has 4 or 5 different specialty restaurants. So you will have the chance to sample for a lunch. It's a lunch on day 5, these different cuisines from these different restaurants, and people just love it. So again, it's a different mix of foods, but again, the chance to be able to give back while having a 5-course lunch. We'll have a holiday beer tasting, which will have some new beers that we're able to try for those of you who've done it before. And then we will have a miniature golf tournament on day 8, the final day at sea, for people to come out and show their skills or that lack thereof. And again, with all of this going back to our Cruising for Our Cause event. So we'll have coffee and conversations. We'll have 2 of those. So, those will be fun opportunities for people to kind of connect and talk about things, or just connect without talking about it. Ice skating, we're actually going to have a Celiac Cruise ice skating event. There'll be 2 of those. And then a fun event with Mr. Matt here again, Words and Wisdom. He'll be joining us in one of these the coffee and conversation events. So, and more. So we'll keep you very, very busy, scavenger hunts, things like that. But this will all be, again, spelled out in that daily planner that we'll be sending you next week. So I am very, very excited. Okay, so I don't know if anybody knows, Vanessa has been a part of Celiac Cruise for a long, long time, and her wisdom and the research aspects, and again, all of the different just amazing things she brings to this entire operation and celiac disease in general. So she will be joining us for our keynote presentation, but also the one and only Dr. Ritu Verma from the University of Chicago is coming back. She also joined us 2 years ago on actually the Independence, but she, in my opinion, is one of the leading experts and gastroenterologists in celiac disease, and she's just such an incredible human being in general. So we hope that you join us for this amazing presentation they'll be giving to us on day 2 in the Royal Theater. It will be after breakfast. Again, you'll have the specifics, but just wanted to give them a shout out because we are just so lucky to be able to learn a little bit, should that be your thing. Again, there's no requirements to go. I just feel like I would like to walk away each cruise feeling a little bit better about the future of celiac disease. And that is what these two young ladies are here to show us. Okay, so now our questions and answers. So again, as I said earlier, don't feel pressure like this is your only chance to ask. If you have questions, that's where I said later questions, info@celiaccruise.com, send them there. So we will get into these now. Okay. All right, so question 1 I see is wheat starch. Yes, no, we do not utilize wheat starch. If it is in any item that is brought on, it will be called out. But we have taken note of those with strictly wheat allergies, but for the most part, we are not using any of that. Matt can probably talk a little bit about that. It's a common thing. This is gluten-free wheat starch. That is safe for people with celiac disease. And sometimes it is put in some products to kind of give them that extra fluff and texture. So that's something, but we do not have any of that on our ship. So that's that. Is a Windjammer restaurant purely for gluten-free guests? Okay, so I answered this a little bit earlier. It is not for late night snacks. It is. So from 10 to 11 late night snacks, that is 100% gluten-free. There is no one else in there other than someone with a Celiac Cruise wristband. The way that we will be handling this, we have a gluten-free line. It is, as I said, it's coming from the Deck 5 galley. What we will be doing, we will have staff there in requiring people to come in with a clean plate. So no one with any food on a plate is able to come in the gluten-free line. And we will keep that manned pretty closely. There will be specific hours because the Windjammer is open from 6 to 11 or hours like that. So we will let you all know the hours in which we will be manning it. And that's when we're going to request you all come at those times, just to ensure that, again, it stays and remains gluten-free.
Could I chime in on the allergens with the wheat
Yes.
starch?
Yes, please.
So I don't know if this is going to be on the ship, but at least when you are on shore, allergen laws in all the countries that we go to are going to identify the common allergens. I believe it's top 8 have to be bolded. So at restaurants, on menus, in cafes. So if you walk into a gluten-free bakery, you will often see the allergens on the like if you see a line of croissants, pain au chocolat, etc., you will see on the card saying what it is. It contains dairy, it contains wheat, etc. If you ask them questions for, hey, like what do these contain? Like does it contain the wheat starch is gluten free? Does it contain oats, etc.? They'll be able to tell you with a degree of ease.
Beautiful. Yes, they do make it a little bit easier, right? You actually have gluten instead of just wheat. Food at the teen club. Not to my knowledge, up to this point, there has not been food a part of the teen club. We were told the only kids club that at times has food is the infants. But we have asked them not to serve food and the times in which our guests are in there. So you should not have to worry about that, but they do not serve food and specifically in the teen club. Do you need to sign up the kids ahead of time or drop off as needed? So, I have kids in this age group too. What I generally do is go to the kids clubs. You do have to register them. So there's a specific form that they make you kind of click and sign on an iPad. And you can also designate at that point if there's anyone else that if they're still within the age group that they need picked up, that they can't sign themselves out. So, for instance, I would put my mother on that so grandma can go and pick up the kids at some point. So you can designate cabin numbers if there's someone else who is able to pick up or drop off your child. Or then also if they're a specific age that they're kind of on the cusp of being able to maybe maturely check themselves out, you can elect whether you want them to be able to be checked out, or if you want to be able to come back. So they'll have you go through that. But I advise you, let's go the first day, in the middle of when you're kind of exploring the ship. That's what we always do. Go check out the ship, go find the kids clubs, show the kids where it is so they know where they're going, and then fill out that iPad waiver. Is there different theme nights for the team club, or are they the same? Generally, I think they're the same. If there is a specific theme that they would have, I think, that is probably shared at time of sailing. We don't get that information. I mean, maybe they would have the kids, okay, on Thursday night wear red or something like that, but we don't have that information specifically. But generally speaking, I don't think they have any big themes. I mean, I have heard that there's sometimes like pajama parties or something like that. So they'll have the kids come and put their pajamas and watch a movie. But again, they would share that with you at when you drop them off. Will dinner be available at the Windjammer as well? No, Windjammer for us is breakfast and lunch. That's where it'll be available. But remember, I said there were some additional options. The Sorrento's Pizza, the other venue on deck 5. I'm blanking. Help me. um, where they have the sandwiches as well. Cafe Promenade. Thank you. Cafe Promenade will also have sandwiches, but then, depending upon what time you are getting back, keeping in mind that we'll be prepping for late night snacks, and sometimes we do actually open a few minutes early. Can't promise that every night, but we have a 10 to try and open early if we're able to. So, you're nearing back to, close to 10, and there'll be another opportunity for food. We have 3-pin electrical items as we are from the UK. Do we have to bring an adapter for the ship sockets? From what I recall, they have both, but Connie, I'm going to have you maybe type that and answer specifically, because if you think Independence, I mean, these ships go all over. From my recollection, they have European plugs, okay, European and US plugs in the cabins. So, I mean, if you do want to take full advantage of every outlet, what I usually do is bring an adapter that also has either a USB or a Type-C plug in it. So that way you're taking full advantage of all, because there aren't a ton of outlets in there usually. I mean, it is a cruise ship cabin, but that's what I do. I usually bring an adapter that has the ability to be able to give me additional, but some you have to make sure that they're approved by cruise ship, because, we are concerned with fire hazards and things like that. But I find on Amazon, there's a whole section of cruise ship approved adapters. I'm not sure what they identify as that, but there is a whole list that will be there. Oats, we do not have oats. We recognize the significance, comorbidities of oats and celiac disease. So we do not have even gluten-free oats in any of our products on board. So you don't have to worry about that. What currency should we tip the Royal Caribbean excursion guides? I have found, I mean, everybody seems to, even in our European cruises that we just came back with, everybody did seem happy with US dollars or whatever I had. But what do you think, Matt?
In Norway and in Copenhagen, it's appreciated, but definitely not expected. But those are the only two non-Euro countries, aside from the UK, that will be having tours. And in my experience, Euros are appreciated just as much as kroner is. But yeah, it's not expected.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're so appreciative to be tipped, Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they accept all currency, excluding a credit card, in my experience. But yeah, so I don't think you can really go wrong, to be honest. If our trip ashore arrives late back on the ship, will the restaurant still be open for dinner? Um, well, we hope it's not too late. We want to make sure you're back on time. But they do try and stay pretty firm with our hours of operation because, I mean, generally speaking, I always say if there's a reason we say no, it has to do with flow, it has to do with safety. And Royal Caribbean is that way with all of their dining establishments that, the seating starts and, they start appetizers, they start mains, they start desserts, and they like to keep people. I mean, they're flexible if you're a little bit late, but showing up at 6:30-ish, they'll probably send you to Sorrento's or Cafe Promenade. Just being honest. If you're non-gluten-free accompanying, so if they are in our group, we kind of expect everyone to be eating in the main dining room because that's where the ship feels, that's where you're assigned. So if I'm just making sure I read this right. If non-gluten-free accompanying daughter, can you eat in the main? So our dining room, as long as they're a part of our group in your cabin, we have them accounted for in our manifest. They should eat with you in the main dining room. Our main dining room, generally speaking, they prefer people in our group to stay in our dining room because that's where they've accounted for our guests. Obviously, people are free to eat outside of our dining room wherever they want if they don't require a gluten-free diet. But we have had many people go try and then end up coming back. We have traveling corporate chefs and all these different things there for a reason. And sometimes we're told things taste better, believe it or not. But obviously, they're free to go to the Windjammer, free to eat whatever they want on the ship, as long as, at their own discretion. We will need to register and complete the visas. Matt, what do you think about this one? We will need to register and complete the ETIS authorization form if we are U.S. citizens to go on this cruise to European ports.
I'm pretty sure that's because if you are a US or a US passport holder, you will have to complete the authorization before you go on the ship. I don't know how it would be enforced. I imagine when you're getting on the ship, they will verify if you have completed it. But there's no harm in doing it just to make sure you don't get delayed getting on board. They're often approved like instantly, but it can take up to 2 days. And if you're in Southampton on embarkation day, you don't want to be waiting 2 days.
Yes. So no European visas. The only one that is required is the one for the UK. And we will again next week send a specific link, for those of you who have not done that. For us, it took a matter of 10 minutes, but make sure you do have that. You'll probably require that upon arriving into the UK, but that is also required for this cruise. What gluten-free beverages are complimentary? Oh, I miss you, Connie. This is Connie's answer. So tea, coffee, water, uh, juices. What else am I missing? Tea, coffee, juices during meals, things like that. If you are interested, sodas, the fancy regular and decaf coffee, so regular and decaf coffee. If you're interested in, kind of the sparkling waters, things like that, they do consider that the soda concept. So you would probably want to think about what the different packages are if you're going to drink that regularly. There's bottled water available for purchase. The tap water is actually, we've watched the whole process in which this is distilled, and it's 100% safe to drink on board. They ask you not to take your water bottles and just go fill it up in the different venues because of, obviously trying to not share too many germs. But what we usually do is I fill up my water, the tumbler, like the plastic tumbler, and then I will dump it in my water bottle. I just get new ones each time. So that is kind of how we handle it. You can get just a water package if you wanted, which is bottles of Evian that I have found to be, kind of reasonable, to be honest with you, considering what certain things cost on the ship. So if you are a big water drinker and you want it like available in your cabin, I would encourage you to look online for what that water bottle package is. But everything else, there is a charge. So sodas, beers, alcoholic beverages, anything like that, cappuccinos even. So yes, I wear a continuous glucose monitor now. Do I need to tell anyone with the cruise or just go through medic? I don't think you need to tell anyone in advance. We have not had issues with this. We have many, many guests in the past who have worn the monitors, so there hasn't been any issues. We have the form that is coming again in this email that we keep talking about. So for those of you who have CPAP machines, anything like that, or sharps, need a sharps container, there will be in the email a link to the special needs department in which you can make a request for those things to be delivered to your cabin. If you have specific needs, refrigerators, things like that. I've mentioned, because I know someone did ask, there is a refrigerator, but in your cabin, but by definition, it's a cooler, so it keeps things cool. But if you have medications or things that need to be a specific temperature, we would recommend that you ask for a refrigerator to be delivered to the cabin, which can take place through that special needs link form that will be coming in the final newsletter. Do medication, oh, okay. Medications I do not think need to be declared or anything like that. I think that's what that question was. Given how far north we'll be, do you think the decks will be chilly when we're at sea? What do you think, Matt?
We're probably not going to know an accurate forecast until the week before we sail, just because of how variable the weather is here. I would prepare for some chilly nights on deck. It just can get chilly that far north, even in the summer. So definitely bring a sweater or a light jacket just so that you're prepared. But yeah, the weather is variable in all of our ports of call. So being ready is a good thing.
I'm kind of looking forward to that because you think traditionally, this time of summer, it's at least where I am, it's hot, hot, hot. So it'll be nice to have a little fallish type temperatures in the evening. How many people are in our group? We have just shy of 600 in our group for this. Are dinner tables combined with other travelers or your group only? So if we received information that you are attached, connected with another group, we do try and seat people together. But we spent a lot of time actually going through this. Specifically, solo travelers are placed with other solo travelers. We do try and really spend some time if we are doing group tables to make sure that, there's things in common, age groups, things like that, locations. So just know there's a lot of time spent in that if and in case you are seated with other passengers. And people come back and generally tell us this is one of their favorite things ever because you're connecting with people who have something in common that, we have this natural icebreaker. We're all here for a reason. So it has been one of the neat experiences of getting to know people with some type of common bond here. Is the Windjammer the main dining room? No, the Windjammer is the quick service dining option. The main dining room is on deck 5, and that is a traditional, sit down, whereas, menued items, whereas the Windjammer is a quick service buffet type situation.
I have two questions that were answered by chat, but when I was answering them during the course of the webinar, I didn't realize I could say I would answer live. So real quick, I think it'd help for everyone on credit cards and cash during the shore excursions. Pretty much every city that we go to is going to be it's going to be very easy to pay with credit cards. Just make sure to use them with no foreign transaction fees. Like in London, for example, I've lived here for 6 years. I think I have touched cash maybe once per year. It's as good as cashless. So it should be pretty easy to get by. Amex may be a little bit tricky to find in the Nordics or to have they be accepted there, but you should be fine with Visa and MasterCard. And another question was on how to get to Southampton, and if you have not already arranged transport to get to the port, the trains are really reliable, really clean, and about an hour and a half from London Waterloo to Southampton. The port is not that far from Southampton Central train station. If you are looking to book tickets, you can check timetables and book tickets. I recommend the app and website called Trainline that you can plug in London Waterloo to Southampton, and you will get a listing of times on that day that have available trains.
Very helpful. Thank you. I even wrote that down. Yeah, so many of you have asked, we all are finding a way to Southampton. There's a series of different, I even saw, in Viator, there were options. It was not a pretty price, but there are various methods depending upon, what your specific situation is. Lots of luggage, a lot of kids, things like that, depending upon how you need to travel. Just following up, I think someone did ask just clarification as it relates to the visas. At this point, what our understanding, and Connie, I know you've confirmed this, and your team has, the only visa that you need is the UK entry visa. And we will send that exact link again on Monday just to make sure that everyone has checked that box. That is the only visa you need. So just clarifying that.
That's what I get for answering a question live. I have a European passport, so I don't need it myself. So I was just making an educated guess. So sorry about that.
Oh, no, 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 no. All good. All good. Um, okay. I mean, I think that's the majority of it. Again, please. Oh, I keep seeing one more pop up. Let's see. Oh, I think, if you have additional questions, please feel free. info@celiaccruise.com. Also utilize the Facebook group. If you're not in that, we recommend you join that. If you're in Facebook, there's a lot of this stuff that's covered there as well.
So we
Yes.
have a couple of questions before we
Okay.
sign off from people who are not able to watch this
Okay.
live. And the first question, I think, Maureen, is going to be more for you to answer is, will the food be labeled at the buffet and dinner menu for other allergens? I am lactose intolerant, so try to avoid most dairy.
Okay. We ask, obviously everything is 100% gluten-free. You don't have to worry about gluten this whole 8 days or 9 days, I guess. In addition, additional dietary restrictions, we ask that you communicate these with your servers, as well as, so they will usually bring out a chef to confirm what your needs are. As it relates to dairy and lactose, and/or lactose, we do have we always do, a decent number of guests with that. So sometimes your servers will know in advance what can be created. But just to make sure all additional dietary restrictions are covered, we ask that you communicate those directly with your server, so that is taken care of. The ship does have this information in advance, so they know how many of us are coming. So they do try and keep that in mind as it relates to cheeses and things like that. But specifically, again, please communicate additional dietary restrictions to your team. As it relates to labeling, I guess we would be talking about the Windjammer late night snacks. Royal Caribbean has various laws that sometimes prevent them from actually being able to put dairy free or things like that on that. So it goes back to that answer when I said, if there's a reason we don't do things, or if a reason we say no, there's some other reason to it. Not trying to make life difficult. So it really just depends on what waters we're in and what the laws are about that. So we would again ask that you communicate. There'll be plenty of chefs. They're always so available. They like to hover around our group, which again makes me proud. Available to be able to give you specific guidance on what you can and cannot have as it relates to additional dietary
And
needs.
on the note of Royal Caribbean's rules and regulations, I got another question of I would like to ask if we are allowed to bring food off the ship when we are in port, and the answer is unfortunately no, based on the cruise line's rules. But the good news is that's why I'm providing a guide with a bunch of options for restaurants to be able to safely eat when you're in these ports of call.
Yes. Prepackaged items are fine. When I prepackaged means not ziplocked, unfortunately, but prepackaged when you think about bars, jerky, things like that. Factory sealed would probably be the safe term. When items are factory sealed, people have not had problems. Again, it's every single port of call on this particular itinerary has different laws. So as a result, we stick Royal Caribbean makes a statement through all of them that you are unable to bring off, you know, Ziploc bagged foods or to go lunches like maybe we had done last sailing. Those ports of call were very different and the laws were different. So
Are we able to bring food from our ports of calls back onto the ship?
no,
Okay.
unless it is sealed. Again, and that same thing. It's a law. I mean, again, if you're trying to bring something back home, you know, and are we still recording? We'll pretend we're not. So again, you're not, if you were to bring something in your bag, let's say we go to an amazing gluten-free bakery.
I
And
was trying to say that.
okay, so don't take this for, off record here. If you were to put something in your bag, a croissant from an amazing gluten-free bakery, the worst thing in that case that I hope would happen is they would take it. I think the opposite is the case as it relates to, port authorities when you're taking things off the ship, going through those detectors, because you do go through X-ray on the way out and you go through X-ray on the way in. And sometimes there are dogs there sniffing for food too when we're getting off the ship.
And there is currently, this is new in the last few weeks, there is currently a ban on bringing meat and cheese from Europe into the UK. That is due to, I think it's called foot and mouth disease in Hungary, but it's an EU-wide ban. Um, when I just came back into the UK a couple weeks ago, there was no enforcement of that, but on the ship, they may be a bit more critical. So if you do find factory sealed meat and cheese, do note that that may also be taken away.
Yes. So really, we don't want any of you getting in trouble. I mean, that is our ultimate goal. We want you to have the best experience possible, but we would feel really bad if someone was detained for taking food off of the ship and we were called. Or missing lunch on arrival day, where can we eat? We could obtain a boarding time after 1:30. Just a reminder, follow up on that. You can board, you're safe to board 11-ish on. Don't worry, don't stay beholden strictly to that boarding time in there because they're very flexible and they do not really enforce that anymore. So come on as soon as it accommodates your schedule. So
We have two more questions from Connie. The first is, are there hair dryers in each stateroom? I think the answer is yes.
there are hair dryers, and Connie sees me smirking. So if you're particular about your hair dryer, I may encourage you to bring one. They vary from ship to ship. Sometimes I go on these ships and I'm very, very thrilled with the hair dryer that I find. Some days I go in and I have to hold down the button and I'm a few minutes late to dinner because it took me a long time to dry my hair. So if you are a hair dryer person, I would bring your hair dryer.
And the last question that I have from Connie is, do you know if the hibachi restaurant on the ship has gluten-free options? And my understanding is that we don't recommend going to the hibachi restaurant because of cross-contact risk. But Maureen, would you want to explain a bit more about that?
That is perfectly said. We always make a point to make sure we have, gluten-free soy sauce available in our venues. That is not something that they guarantee to have all the time, but hibachi specifically, if you think about how food's being flipped, tossed, thrown, anything outside of our dedicated environments, we ask that you utilize your traditional conversation and warnings and things like that. So, I mean, again, that is at your own discretion. Obviously, if it's something that you feel comfortable with, so be it, but we cannot guarantee that environment would be free from cross contact.
I think it'd be a fun project to convince them to make that experience 100% gluten-free, but maybe on a future sailing.
Yes, exactly. Lisa, send us an email, info@celiaccruise.com. We can maybe logistically talk about that circumstance to find out exactly what time you would be arriving. How's the Wi-Fi on the ship? Is it worth to buy the Voom package? The Wi-Fi is very good now. So they use Starlink. So I would say, if days of old of buying a Wi-Fi package and it dropping every few minutes, that is not the case anymore. Obviously, you will be traveling to different ports of call. So depending upon what your international cell phone rules are, we just strongly, strongly encourage you to turn on airplane mode when we leave ports of call, though, because that international sea charges are not fun. And some of us in this group have forgotten to do that and are still paying the piper for it. So just make sure you go on airplane mode. The Wi-Fi is good. I know it's pricey, but if you need to stay in touch with home or work, it's doable. So. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, Matt, thank you so, so much for joining us today. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We're very much looking forward to seeing you in 17 days. Again, feel free to ask questions. We 100% recognize this is our lives too. I know what it's like to travel. We know that it can create questions and nerves. So we understand the shoes you're in. So we will do our best to answer any questions we can, but again, make this as seamless as possible for all of you so we cannot focus consistently on food and enjoy vacation instead. But thank you, everybody. And you'll receive a copy of this in your emails later this week. See you soon.
Yeah, on board.
All right. Bye.